Okay, so it is time to get fertilizer on the new trees. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you today. It is an extremely warm, late April morning, 2020. So if you guys have been following us along, you've seen that we have been in the middle of scrambling to get a bunch of fruit trees here into the ground here in spring of 2020. So final count was 55 trees. So we were actually able to get 55 trees into the ground. So of course, now what we need to do is make sure that we have all of these trees ready and prepared to get through this summer. So what we want to do today is we want to show you what we're going to do as far as fertilizing for these new trees. So I should probably clarify really quick. Typically when we're doing fertilizing, we fertilize 3 times a year. So we fertilize in February, we fertilize in May, and we fertilize in September. Easiest way for us to remember is Valentine's Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day, we're fertilizing, at least those months. So we're a little ahead of the game being at the end of April here. However, we have these new trees in the ground. We're already up to 100 degrees, and we need to make sure that they've got everything they need to get some good, strong growth here in the month of May before we hit June. So what we figured we would do is we wanted to do a couple of different tests to see how the different types of fertilizers are going to react here on the farm. And also there was really kind of at the behest of Reed for his trees. Last time we were there picking up the last 19 trees from him, he said, you know what, in his special way, you need to put real fertilizer on those trees. So we took his advice, and we are going to go ahead and get some conventional fertilizer on his trees, which we normally wouldn't do. However, you know us, we're going to test that theory to see whether or not it makes a difference. So what we want to do is we're going to try a little bit of a test. We are going to use some conventional fertilizer, which we typically don't do. We'll talk about some of the reasons why besides Reed, and we'll go with a couple other fertilizers that we typically would use on some of these trees, so we can kind of get an idea of how the trees react, and more importantly, how the soil life and the soil around the trees react. So let's look a little bit at the 3 different types of fertilizers we're going to be using today. Okay, so here's an idea of the 3 fertilizers that we're going to be testing out on our new trees today. So the first one is going to be that conventional fertilizer. Now, I don't have the bag out here. It's a 50-pound bag of conventional fertilizer. I wanted to go ahead and get it into a container that I could easily seal and store. So we put about half the bag into this 5-gallon bucket, but I do have all the specs on here. So again, traditional conventional fertilizer. This one is from Fertizona, so it's actually made and designed for us here in Arizona, specific to our soil. One of the reasons that Reed gave for using this specific fertilizer, the one that he recommends, is that it's designed for our soil. And what really caught my attention more than anything that I need to make sure we're taking into account is the fact that we have very, very high pH, which we already knew. And our soil samples showed that. Our pH is above 8. So it's extremely high. Now, of course, trees can handle that. They can do okay. However, we do want to bring that down. So this fertilizer, by the way, it's called First Class FURST 15-15-15 premium. So the 15-15-15 specifies the amount of nitrogen, the amount of phosphate, and the amount of potash. So those are the things that we're looking at as far as that 15-15-15, and that's 15% of each one of those as far as the total amount inside the fertilizer. In addition to that, it has zinc, which we were deficient in with our results. It has sulfur, which is going to help lower the pH somewhat. There's about 7% of that, and there is some iron in here, so just under 2% as far as iron. So that's the conventional fertilizer that we're going to be trying out here on the trees, and again, that was the specific direction from Reed for his trees. So we're going to be giving that one a shot. So the next fertilizer we're going to be trying out is the Bioflora Dry Crumbles. Now, trying out, I'm not going to necessarily say it's trying out. We've used this multiple times. We really like this fertilizer. It is organic, number one. However, it can be a little bit expensive. I think this small bag, which the weight of this bag is a 5-pound bag, this bag I think was $13 or $14 at Summer Winds. And this 50-pound bag of conventional fertilizer from Fertizona was $25 for 50 pounds. So a lot more expensive. And then those same numbers for the nitrogen, etc., is 6, 10, and 1. So, and then it does have some added calcium, which of course here on our farm in mainland Arizona, we don't actually need. We have a lot of calcium already in the soil. but we will be using some bioflora crumbles as part of our test. Last thing would be our favorite, and this here is completely uncomposted dry chicken manure, and it's mixed with straw. This comes directly out of the girls that you see behind me here, and that would be our egg-laying chickens. The nice part about being out here in Arizona when it comes to chicken manure, because we're so dry out here, it dries up almost instantaneously, so very easy to store and transport so that you can utilize it on your fruit trees, and we do. Really like to use this, especially on our citrus trees, which is what you see here. So now these are the 3 fertilizers we're going to test. We'll talk about how we're going to be performing this test so we get an idea of what the results will be. But a couple other things when it comes to fertilizer. You're already going to see it, gloves. So you want to make sure that you glove up for this. I like these. These are these little MaxiFlex endurance gloves. They fit my hands really, really well. I'm still pretty dexterous with these, so it's easy for me to kind of maneuver. They don't last a real long time if you're in really rough soil or using them as far as a lot of things that are abrasive. However, you do have a lot of feel with them, so I like these for what we're doing today. One of these guys, so this would be an N95 mask. These are really hard to come by these days. We do utilize these over and over again. I've utilized this now for over a month on the different things we do here because it's mainly to keep dust and particles out of my chest, basically. Particularly mold for me, but when you're using some of these fertilizers, you don't want any of that stuff getting into your lungs. So I will be utilizing one of these. And then of course glasses. I always wear sunglasses when it's sunny outside, but in particular I don't want this stuff splashing up into my eyes. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the first test we're going to do, which is what surrounds me here. Okay, so first test, and the first things we're going to fertilize here this morning would be our kumquats. So I have 4 varieties of kumquats here. I have the Centennial variegated here. We have the Miwa here. We have the Fukushu there, and that last one on the end there would be the Nagami. So the Nagami would probably be the one that is the most popular. When you find kumquats in the store, that's the variety that you're going to see. The Fukushu, not near as, I would say, available or easy to find. The Miwa is almost impossible, it seems like, so this one's hard to find, and the Centennial is very unique. So one of the things that we found when it comes to these different varieties is the Centennial grows really, really well. It's got a lot of new growth on the tips right now that I can see, so it's doing fantastic. Essentially no real transplant shock. It's only been in the ground for a couple weeks here, but it's doing really good. The Miwa actually is doing much better than it typically does. Typically this tree really struggles with growth, but I've got a lot of really good growth on the tips. I mean, fantastic new growth on the tips of this tree. So really excited for this one. For these 2 trees, because this one has a tendency to struggle a little bit, and this one really takes off and is super, super strong and aggressive, we're gonna go ahead and give a shot and utilize the conventional fertilizer on these 2 trees. Now, as part of the test, our other 2 trees, our Fukushu and our Nagami, we're gonna go ahead and use raw chicken manure mixed with the wood chips in the rings, the watering rings for those 2 trees. So what Lori and I are gonna go ahead and do now is we're gonna pull back the wood chips, you'll see us doing that, so we can get the fertilizer around the rings in the tree and go ahead and cover them back up with a nice heavy layer of wood chip mulch. So all of that fertilizer is right against the ground where all the water is gonna water this into the trees when we run irrigation tonight. So Lori, let's go ahead and get going. Okay, so we went ahead and finished up. We got these 2 trees done. So that has that Fertizona conventional fertilizer on it. So you can see very easy, I use that little 4-pronged cultivator to pull the wood chips back, make sure that we're down to where it's nice and wet with the wood chips, and then we sprinkle those pellets down there where they basically touch the ground and have all the wood chips around them. So that's gonna do really well there. We'll probably come through and fill in a few more wood chips. We've got a pile behind us. However, we wanna move on to these 2. So for these 2, if Lori wants to slide in, let's take a look what we're going to be putting in the wood chips here. Okay, so as Lori gets a close-up, you can see very, very dry chicken manure. I'm going to keep away from it. It's already getting up. I want to be able to talk to you guys. But you can see pretty dry and dusty. We do have some straw because we do keep straw in the run. So we got a little bit of straw mixed in here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically utilize this bucket, split it about 50-50 between these two trees so we can get some nice nitrogen-rich raw chicken manure mixed into there to start composting down. Let's go ahead and get this under these two trees. Okay, so like that, we're done with these. So you can see it takes a lot more material in order to fertilize the citrus trees with the raw chicken manure. Now I can tell you, a couple things that I've seen and had people ask me about is wood chips. Are they really necessary? You know, I think you can probably argue that one way or another. However, our ultimate goal is to grow and establish soil. What is right before me here is not soil, it's just dirt. So it's a component of soil, but it's not soil. So what we're really trying to do is establish soil. Now, one of the big questions with conventional fertilizer is whether or not that actually destroys soil life or actually can help enhance it. I am more leaning towards probably not help it. So we really want to see how the soil that we're creating now reacts under the circumstances of having that conventional fertilizer. However, if that's not what you're doing and you just have rings around your trees or heaven forbid rocks, using a conventional fertilizer, you know what, it's fine. It's a lot less expensive, and of course if you don't have livestock, you don't have that as an option like we do here. So you know what, use what you can afford and what works best for you. So when it comes back down to wood chips though, one of the things that we see very, very vividly out here is, and especially even now, with our newly planted trees, we have some brand new trees that are in the ground, only a week old, that don't have wood chips around the tree quite yet, and we have some that are about a week or two older that do, and they're faring much better in this hot weather. Much, much better. In fact, we were even seeing a little bit of wilting on some of the leaves yesterday afternoon. We got to 100 degrees out here, and our trees that were a week older that had wood chips all around them were doing just fine, no issues whatsoever. And then of course, the actual action of a natural fertilizer, having them underneath wood chips, you're gonna allow that to continue to break down. So having those wood chips there to cool the soil, to help get your fertilizing or fertilizer broken down and establishing soil around the tree, we're of the opinion that it really does make a difference. Either way, these are ready to go. We're done here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go behind us here, fertilize the mulberries, and then we're gonna jump into our west orchard, and we're gonna actually show you another test that we're gonna be doing. Okay, so went ahead and did the mulberries. By the way, with the mulberries, we did use the raw chicken manure because we already know we have some wonderful worm action going there, a lot of soil already being created. So that's done. Now we're on to our west orchard. So you can see we got several trees behind us here. We have our first round of plantings, mainly on that side there, but we have a lot of new stuff coming down through here. So you can see we have our rings created. Now these are just the initial rings for these young fruit trees. So we have our emitter back there. Eventually that ring will be all the way where I'm standing, essentially will be the ring. So that's eventually where this tree will grow out to. But right now we're trying to get roots established out to here. So you can see we do have some wood chips piled up in the middle. That was just to make sure for the last week we were able to maintain some of the soil moisture. However, we're gonna go ahead and get fertilized in here and then of course fill this in with wood chips and then run irrigation tonight. So what we really wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about these trees and the test we're going to be doing with this particular variety. Okay, so the variety, these are early amber peaches. So we have 4 of them here because we love this variety. In fact, I'll link the video here, I think where we did a harvest off of the tree on the old property, but a very, very good freestone fruit. Either way, we've got 4 of them here in the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a test with 2 different fertilizers. And we also have 2 different types of rootstocks. We have 1 rootstock here and we have 1 rootstock on those last 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to try out the conventional fertilizer, 1 on each rootstock. So 1 here at the front, 1 at the back. So we have both rootstocks. And then we're going to use the Bioflora crumbles, according to the bag instructions, on the middle 2, which will get us the 2 rootstocks as well on the test with the Bioflora crumbles. So what Lori and I are going to do, we're going to go ahead and get these fertilized, and we need to get wood chips on these rings. So we're going to go ahead and do those both now. Okay, so we got those done. So you can see it obviously really helps when you got teamwork getting this fertilizing done for the season. Now we've got a whole lot more trees to go. However, those are done. And also you can kind of get an idea too, when you first put wood chips down, they are going to be kind of high, they're kind of fluffy. But as you start to water them in, they start to sink and compress down and really compact down. And so what we're going to do, not only are we going to come back and get everything fertilized, we're also going to come in and top off some of these trees that have been in the ground for about a week longer than these new ones, and go ahead and get them fertilized and replenished on wood chips so they're ready to go for the summer. So Laura and I have a lot more work to do. You guys get to watch us work. Wanted to show you something really quick because people ask us all the time, why don't you amend the soil that the tree is planted into? And like we always stress, your fruit trees will send feeder roots out. So they are looking for stuff out away from the tree. And we talked a little bit about these rings being temporary. This is not where we're going to have our permanent irrigation rings. They'll be out here, so we encourage roots to come out. So check out what we saw on this tree that actually has been in the ground for 3 weeks. I think I said 2 weeks ago. It's actually been 3, but I'm gonna have Lori slide in here and check this out. So you can kind of see the fertilizer, but look at this. So this is the inside mound for this little tree. This is some type of plum or apricot hybrid. And check this out. We've got feeder roots right here coming out into this ring. So we got several of them there. I see one right here, and I'm not going to disturb anything else. My guess is there's probably more, but this tree was in a pot about where we have this rabbit protection ring around it. That's where the roots ended. They've already come out here another, what, 8 inches or so, working out into this ring, and you can see this ring is already creating soil down here with these wood chips. So again, that debate about wood chips or no, I'm saying wood chips, yes. Either way, had to take a quick break and show you that. That was great to see. So like that, we are done. So we actually got started early this morning. It's about 10 o'clock here this morning, so it's time to get out of the sun. It's gonna be 100 degrees today. So we wanted to get this done, get all the fertilizer in the ground. We're gonna irrigate real heavy tonight to really let that soak down into the ground. So obviously you guys will probably be seeing this in May. You know, if you follow the same fertilizing schedule as we do, so February, May, and September, right now would be a good time to go ahead and get your trees fertilized. So I'll tell you what, it was really exciting to see that root growth already coming out into those tree rings. You know, the only thing that makes me nervous is a conventional fertilizer in those rings next to that. We also did see a nice big night crawler in one of those, which was really cool to see. Either way, we're gonna test this out, see how the conventional fertilizer does. You know, you can argue it one way or another. I won't make that argument here. What I'll tell you, like I've said once before when we were talking about fertilization, whatever you can afford to do, whatever you believe in, you know what, use that. Definitely fertilize your fruit trees though. They're gonna need it. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. And that 15-15-15 is your phosphate, your potash, it's your, no, I gotta start over because it's nitrogen, phosphate and potash.